All right, seem to have lost some volume there. So again, good morning, everyone. This is Valerie calling in from Metrics Learning, and thank you all for being here for the final review session. I see we have great attendance so far for this program. So for the purposes of this webinar, your microphones are muted and your phone, but feel free to put any chat questions you have within here, and we'll go ahead and answer you. All right, great. So starting off with this program here, I'm going to give you some information. First, I will review with you information about the certification program. Also, I will be going over the exam objectives today. So this is the document that I had sent to you previously. So you'll have access to this, and while you're going over your training, this is a really great thing to be able to refer to. So if I can just ask quickly, can everyone hear me okay? If someone just wants to write into the chat, excellent. Thank you so much. Great. So again, we are recording this, so go ahead and get started here. So after I give you information about the exam objectives, we'll go into open Q&A. And again, thank you everyone for your responses here. So again, some information about the QuickBooks 2012 certification exam. So the exam that you're taking, as you can see here, is in QuickBooks 2012. You do take training in a couple of different topics, but the Mastering QuickBooks is in 2012, and that is the bulk of the training. So the exam that you're taking consists of 50 multiple choice questions, and it is 50 minutes long. So on average, that's about a question per minute, if you think of it that way. What's great about the exam is if you can't remember the answer to a question right away, you can go ahead and mark it for review and go back to it later. So if you need to spend some more time on questions, you can go back to that. A passing score on the exam is a 700 out of 1,000, or a 70%. This means getting 35 questions correct. And as we mentioned previously, the exam is administered through Certiport, which is a certification testing company. You will go on site to the Work to Future location to take the certification exam. So next, I'm going to go into the exam objectives. Basically, what this is, it's a 2-page document that I had given you at the beginning of this program. So it consists of the 10 different sections of questions that are asked on the exam, and also the makeup of the exam, the percentage of the questions under each type. So you'll see that as I go forward into here. So the first topic that you were asked about is QuickBooks Setup, and you can see that this is 6% of the questions that are asked. You will want to know what information is required before you set up a QuickBooks file. Remember, in order to create a company through Express Start, you're going to need to know basic company information and to know general operations within the company. You'll also want to know how to start a new company file in QuickBooks. You'll want to know how to keep the list and preferences from an old file while removing transactions, and how to customize the home page through preferences. In addition, you will want to know how to set up lists. This includes customers, vendors, items, and so on. This will include understanding which names and items should appear on which list. Topic number 2 is QuickBooks Utilities and General Product Knowledge. This is 10% of the questions that are asked, or 5 questions more or less. You will want to know how to navigate or move around QuickBooks by using the home page, menus, icon bar, and so on. How to back up and restore a data file by going to File, Open or Restore Company. How to determine the release number and how to update QuickBooks. How to use QuickBooks in single user and multi-user mode by going to File, Switch to multi-user mode. Which versions and editions of QuickBooks are available for a specific year. How to password protect QuickBooks, and how and why to use preferences. Topic number 3 is list management. This is 6% of what is asked. You'll want to know how to manage lists, including customers, vendors, items, and so on. List management will include adding new entries, deleting entries, editing entries, and merging entries. Remember, if you want to merge an entry, you'll want to rename the list entry. So going to pages 30 to 32 of the Day 1 manual will give you more information about this. Item number 4 is items, or 8% of the questions asked. You will want to know how QuickBooks uses items to perform necessary accounting entries, the different types of items and when to use each type. Day 1 manual, Chapter 5, page 48, was very helpful in knowing this. You'll want to know how to use items for different types of scenarios, which will include companies that sell products for a specified price, services for a specified price, unique products or services that have different prices for each sale, or one service or product. You'll also want to know the difference between inventory parts, non-inventory parts, and inventory assembly, which is pages 40 to 48 of the Day 1 manual. Part 5 covers sales, or 10% of the questions asked. You'll want to know the 5 ways to record sales. These are invoicing, sales receipts, statement charges, deposits, or through Excel, P-Treat, or another compatible program. You'll want to know who should be listed in the Customer Center, how to navigate and use the Customer Center. You'll also want to know how to complete the workflow from making the sale to making the deposit for invoicing or sales receipts. Remember, you invoice when someone does not pay at the time of sale, and you do a sales receipt when someone does pay at the time of sale. You'll want to know how QuickBooks uses the undeposited funds, accounts receivable, and checking accounts in the invoicing cycle, how and why to record a customer credit, how and why to create statements, and how to handle bounced or NSF checks when someone writes you a bad check. Item number 6 is purchases, or 10% of the questions asked. You will want to know who should be listed in the vendor center. Remember, a vendor is anyone you pay. This can mean subcontractors, your utility company, your landlord, tax agencies, suppliers, and so on. You'll want to know how to navigate and use the vendor center, the different workflows for making purchases. This will include entering and paying bills, writing checks, using a credit, and using a debit card. How to record the transactions in the purchase workflows, how and why to record a vendor credit, how to complete the inventory workflow from purchase order to payment, how to set up, collect, and pay sales taxes, and bank reconciliation. So item number 7 is payroll. This is 12% of the questions asked. Going through the training, this is something I found that I struggled with, so I made sure to refer to the Day 2 manual and Chapter 5 to review these topics. For payroll, you'll want to know the differences between the payroll services available from QuickBooks, which includes basic, enhanced, assisted, and direct, how to set up payroll, including employees, federal and state taxes, and basic payroll reductions using the Setup Wizard, how to set up an employee's earnings and sick or vacation time, how to track sick or vacation time, accruing hours and using banked hours, how and why to set up payroll schedules, how to run payroll or pay employees, how and when to pay, why to pay payroll liabilities, how to prepare payroll forms, including 941 and W-2 in QuickBooks, and how to track time and use it for payroll or for invoicing customers. Topic number 8 is reports. This makes up 16% of the questions asked, so this is the largest portion of questions that are asked. You'll want to know how and why to use the report center, how to customize reports, including report modifications, collapsing sub-accounts, and so on, using the Customize Report button, the basic question that each report answers and the basic understanding of each report, how and why to process multiple reports by going to Reports, Process Multiple Reports, how and why to send reports to Excel, and how to memorize reports. Chapter 9 is basic accounting. So this is 10% of what is asked. Topic 9, not Chapter 9. You will want to know what the basic financial statements are and have a basic understanding of what each means, the difference between cash and accrual reports. Remember, accrual-based accounting recognizes expenses and income in the period they occurred, regardless if payment has actually occurred. But cash basis does not recognize items until they have been paid. You'll also want to know how and why to set a closing date. It's important because the closing date allows you to close the books and not change any financial transactions dated for that year, and how to enter a journal entry if asked to do so by an accountant. You won't need to fully recognize what accounts to debit or credit. Again, journal entries are used to adjust errors, make year-end adjustments, and for entering transactions that cannot be entered in built-in formats. Lastly, topic number 10 is customization and saving time and shortcuts in QuickBooks. This is 12% of the questions asked. You will want to know how and why to memorize transactions, how to set up multiple reports and what level of access can be granted or denied, and how and why to create custom reports including customers, vendors, and employees. So that concludes the exam objective overview. Now I'm going to give you some information about practice tests and testing information. So again, once you have completed all of the training and metrics, you'll receive access to your voucher in addition to access to additional practice for the QuickBooks certification exam. So additional practice that is optional, but highly recommended, is the following. Number 1, we have created 2 quiz assessments through a program called QuizStar. This is outside of metrics. What these are 2 50 multiple choice quizzes, and they consist of questions that are on the certification exam or much like them. So once you complete all training, we will send you access to these QuizStar quizzes. In addition, you'll receive access to QuickBooks practice questions, 2 PDFs. Again, these are 2 50 multiple choice quiz, this is 100 practice questions on 2 different PDFs. And we'll have those with answers and without answers. So if you want to go through the PDF questions with the answers, you can do that, or without to test yourself. And the QuizStar assessment and the practice question PDFs consist of the same questions, so you're welcome to do either. Also, when you complete all training, you'll receive a voucher with practice tests. Again, each Certiport voucher comes with 3 practice tests, and these very closely replicate the certification exam. Each of these is for a one-time use, so you'll get 3 different practice tests. They can be accessed at a home computer, but they do require that you download a browser lockdown from Certiport.com. We will send you download and access instructions in the practice test email that you'll receive for this exam. And a brief note, these practice tests cannot be accessed on Macs or with IE11. So if you do have either of these, please shoot us an email and we can give you some further information. Now on to testing information. As I mentioned, the certification exam will be at Work to Feature and will be in their assessment lab. Testing will take place on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in order to arrange a certification testing time and date, you want to contact Sunita at the information that's listed here. So I'll give a minute or 2 just so you can go ahead and write down this information, and we can also send it out to you. So again, you want to contact Sunita at area code 408-794-1258 or through email at sunita.shivdasani@worktofuturefoundation.org. I'll just stop here so you can take a second to write this down, and again, we can send this information out to you. All right. So at this point, I'm going to open up the line, the chat, to any questions that you have. So if you do have questions, feel free to send them in the chat window that was listed. What I'm also going to do here is we had a good question from a customer earlier today regarding the Prove It assessments and how you can see how you did on any of the assessments. So I'm going to bring up my own account here. So for those of you who are still taking training, I know that some people have finished everything. Some people have are kind of working on things right now. If you would like to see the score that you get on your Prove It assessment, what you can do is go to your My Plan. And I'm bringing this up in my own account here. I have a lot of courses. So if you want to see your report on how you did in the QuickBooks course, or the QuickBooks Pro 2012 and QuickBooks Pro 2011 assessments, So again, those are just the testing assessments with the multiple choice questions. What you can do is you can go to your My Plan, click on the name of the activity, and then at the bottom of the page here, you'll see the score that you got and then the required score. You can see here that I got a 32%. This is after just kind of clicking through here quickly for you. And then if you would like to get a detailed result of the results that you received, what you can do is click on the link at the very bottom of the page, and this will send you to Proveit's website, and you can see the questions that were on here, the different topic areas that they're in, and then also if you got them correct and incorrect. So again, with the Proveit's, if you don't pass the first time through, don't be alarmed. You can retake the activity as many times as you want to get the score that you want. And going through this, the question order doesn't change. So you can see here, on question number 2, I got this incorrect. You can then go back into the Proveit assessment and then re-answer that. And what's good about this being a multiple choice exam is you can kind of use the process of elimination to go through and make sure that you have the correct answer. All right, and we have a couple different things here. Thank you for letting me know that you're on the line. For some reason, it is not letting me type into the chat here right now. So that is frustrating. But if you do have any questions here, you can feel free to type them in, and I'm going to go ahead and speak them out here. So we have someone who asked if they can get access to the PDF of the slides from this presentation. You absolutely can. If anyone else wants access, let me know, or I can just send a general PDF out to everyone on the line here for note-taking. And regarding questions for this program, if you do have any questions for myself, you can feel free to ask here. If there's kind of general questions, for instance, how did you feel about, this part of the portion, you can feel free to type them in here. But again, I'm going to kind of ask that you direct questions to myself here rather than anything else. We do have a question here. How many times can the Certiport exam be retaken if you don't pass the first time? That's a great question. So with the exam voucher that you get an exam plus 1 retake. So say you don't pass the exam the first time you take it, you're welcome to retake it a second time. It can be retaken any time within 30 days of that period. And we have a request to send the slides. I can go ahead and do that. We have more than one person here asking for that, so I'll make sure that along with the recorded version of this webinar, I'll make sure that you get access to the PDF copy. I'm sorry, my chat isn't working here, everyone. Strange. Nope. All right. Yes, keep the questions coming, and I'll make sure to send them through the webinar here. All right. Do we have any other questions moving into the exam? I know that kind of people are at different points in the training. But again, feel free to send them over here. We have a question, what do we need to bring the exam day? That's a great question. So the things that you'll need to bring with you are a government-issued ID, just so they can check to make sure that you are you. Before you go to the exam, you'll be creating an account through Certiport. That will have, you'll put your information in there, and that will also have your voucher. So you'll want to make sure that you have your Certiport login information. Again, that will be different than your Metrics Learning login information. But you will have created an account through Certiport so you can access the 3 practice tests prior to coming into the exam. So you'll want your government-issued ID, your voucher information, and then also regarding the lost my trail of thought here. Make sure you have those 2 different things. And during the exam itself, work to feature staff. You're not allowed to have any, recording devices on you. It's not an open book exam or anything like that. So you also won't be able to have your phone, what have you. So your belongings will temporarily be held onto during the exam itself. All right, so we've got a question here too. Do we have to take the test next week? For anyone who has completed training, we very much urge that you take the certification exam next week. We want to try and get as many people in testing next week as possible because, again, staff and the space have been reserved in order to facilitate the testing. If you do think it's going to be an issue with you testing next week, please let us know. We can work with Work to Future to make accommodations if needed, but again, the majority of testing will take place next week. We have a question here. Is the exam administered by someone, and are all students taking the exam at the same time? So the exam is administered by a Work to Future proctor. So basically they'll be there just kind of overlooking, making sure everything goes all right. And not all students will be taking the exam at once. Due to lab accommodations, there will be a couple of different testing times and dates that are available to you. All right, continue your questions on in here. In the meantime, I will keep talking. So a question that was asked to me previously was, do you find out if you pass the certification exam the day of? And the answer to that is yes. So once you finish the exam, you'll find out within 1 to 2 minutes if you pass or not. So it's really nice knowing right on the spot. At the same time, while 1 or 2 minutes does seem like a short amount of time, it can kind of feel long. But you'll know right then. And again, if you don't pass, you will have a chance at a retake. And we here at Metrics Learning can work with you if there's any topics that you kind of struggled with. We can kind of work with you to make sure that you are prepared for that. Also, with both the 3 practice tests you take and the exam itself, you'll get a breakdown of the different areas in the exam and how you scored on each percentage-wise. So, for instance, I mentioned the payroll is difficult for me. I noticed with my first practice exam that I did not do very well in that, so I really built upon that and ended up doing well in the certification exam. But it's good because you can kind of know where you lie and also get 3 attempts at the real thing before you go in. So we have a question here. How are we going to know the time and schedule for QuickBooks testing? In order to arrange a testing time and date, you're going to want to contact Sunita, as I mentioned previously. So she will let you know when testing will be. Let me see here. I'll bring this info up for you. Here we go. Sunita's information is up here on the board for you. So there's her phone number as well as her email to contact. And it will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have a question here. What do we get after knowing we passed the exam on the exam date? For instance, a certificate. So after you pass the exam, a hard copy of your certificate is going to be sent to your home address that you register your Certiport account for. So that takes, I'd say, was 1 to 2 weeks to come in the mail. Mine was pretty quick. But basically, you don't get anything hard copy the day of. However, the moment you pass that exam, you are certified. You're certified in QuickBooks. So you'll be able to put that on your resume. Either some people put it under certifications or under skills, and then again, you'll get that hard copy a week or 2 later. All right, keep the questions coming. All right, so we have a couple questions here. If you were to fail the exam twice, you can't retake it, correct? We'll talk with Work to Feature. That's something, again, this is a pilot program, but if you weren't to pass with the voucher and the retake you're given, we will work with you on a one-by-one basis. We have a question here. When will we have the PDF format of QuickBooks? So I think that you're referring to the PDF of this presentation right now. I will be sending this later on today after our call, so you'll be able to take this and take notes, which I know some of you do. Do we have any previewing of the test is another question that I have here. So again, you're going to get a lot of practice. I know that everyone kind of is at different points. You'll get practice with the types of questions, but the best preview of the test that you receive are those 3 practice tests through Certiport. Because much like the exam, they are 50 minutes long. They consist of 50 multiple choice questions and the types of questions on the exam. And I mentioned this, the exam is very challenging. So while the questions in the practice are very much like the certification exam itself, the exam is very challenging. It's not meant to, trick you or trip you up, but it is meant to know that you know your stuff. So between all the practice we give you through metrics, the optional QuizStar PDF documents, and the 3 practice tests you get, you should feel pretty well prepared for the verbiage and the types of questions that are asked, which I know people find tricky. Also, what is nice about the practice you do get is with the 3 practice tests, they are 50 minutes long. Something else people typically bring up with me is, listen, I know my stuff, it's just difficult to do in a 50-minute time period. The time testing is difficult. Some people haven't had time testing in a very long time. But when you're doing, the 3 practice tests, those will be 50 minutes. But another suggestion I do have is when you pass all of your training, if you choose to take the QuizStar practice assessments, take those in a 50-minute period so that you can kind of, know what to expect and how you're doing with the timed portion of the exam. We have a question here. How long is the test? The couple questions coming in here. Goodness, sorry. So how long is the exam? The exam will be 50 minutes long, 50. A question here, is the metrics learning quizzes and Certiport practice tests similar in format and questions? Yes. So again, the questions on the test will be trickier. But what the practice and metrics, in addition to the Certiport practice tests, are meant to do is get you familiar with the verbiage and the way that questions are asked, and then for those 3 practice tests, kind of the format, what you can expect, and also the timed aspect. We have a comment here. QuickBooks 2012 training was not hands-on like QuickBooks 2009, which lets us practice. This is correct. The 2009 course is meant to give you simulation and hands-on, and then the QuickBooks 2012 and QuickBooks Pro 2011 assessments were meant to give you practice with the multiple choice types of questions on the certification exam. So we kind of make sure that all bases are covered and that you get a good deal of different types of practice in there. All right, any further questions? Feel free to keep them coming. And again, this will be the last time that we are all on the line together, so if you have anything, feel free to send. If you think of something the moment we get off the line, or maybe after listening to this recording, going through the PDFs that I'll send, you can feel free to send us an email or, give us a call, send a support ticket, anything like that. And yes, you will receive, we have a question here, will the PDF format we get be through email? Yes, I will be sending you an email of the PDF of this presentation. All right, any further questions? I'll give it a couple more minutes here. I guess a couple of tips. that I have in preparing for the exam is I went over the exam objectives during this presentation. Make sure that you do the same. The different topics, you should be able to answer, how these different areas are. If there is anything you think you're missing out on, I would refer back to the course, to manuals, and just make sure that you understand each topic. Let's see what else. In addition, those quiz star, I found they were very helpful. Again, those aren't mandatory, but I found it helpful to go through those. You can take them up to 10 times each, the quiz star practice assessments, and time yourself. Maybe you set a little timer on your cell phone, or if you have a stopwatch, for 50 minutes, just so you're kind of within that time period. So you know the types of questions, and also you're set to go for that time allotment. And then the 3 practice tests you'll get through Certiport. Those you can take in either study mode or certification. Basically, you'll get the answers to the questions through those 3 practice tests after you answer the questions, which, of course, you will not get the answers to the questions during the exam itself. So just make sure to note that. And then at the end of those practice tests, you get a breakdown of the different areas that you're asked questions on, and again, those percentages of questions you have correct. Just make sure that if you're studying, to focus on the areas that you may need some additional assistance in, and you should be good to go for the exam. Great question here. Do scores appear on the certificate? No, they do not. So whether you pass with a 700, which is what's needed to pass the certification exam, or whether you get 1,000 out of 1,000, the scores do not list on the certification. So what matters is that you pass. All right, I'll give it 1 more minute here for questions. Feel free to send through. Another good question here. How long is the certification valid for? Is there recertification needed after a certain time? No, there is no recertification needed. Once you get that certification, you are set. With some exams, such as project management and so on, you do need to recertify every couple years to make sure you maintain that. But once you get that, you are all set. I've never had that question, so thank you. All right, any further questions? I'll give it a couple more seconds here. We have a question here. So we just study from the manual. There's a couple different ways to study. You can study from the manual and go through the different topics. You can write notes, review your notes, just go through the multiple choice questions, which again, that's how the exam is made up. There's a couple different ways. It depends on how you want to do that. Another question we have here, if you fail, will you be able to study again if you failed twice? With your access, you have 90-day access to metrics learning. So even if you don't pass the certification exam, you will still have 90-day access for this program. We have a question here. If we have access to QuickBooks, we can answer the questions better. Why don't we have access to QuickBooks? So the QuickBooks software, it does require being on a computer here. So because all of our training is accessible online, it's virtual, you don't need the software itself to do the program. Everything is web-based. So what we do give you access to is that QuickBooks Pro 2009 course, so you get to simulated practice with the exam. Additionally, the certification exam is not, it doesn't ask you to use the QuickBooks interface. It asks you to answer the multiple choice questions. So that you feel prepared for the exam, we do give you a good deal of access with the multiple choice nature. All right, give it a couple more seconds for questions here. All right, so I don't see any other questions at this point. Again, thank you all so much for being on the line here today. If you do have anything, any questions, comments, concerns after this, you can feel free to send them to our email. I'll be sending out a recorded version in addition to the PDF that we had mentioned. So again, thank you all so much for being on the line today, and best of luck with your exam. We look forward to helping you get this certification. And have a great day, everyone.